Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, Positive Philter listeners. It's Philip Wilkerson with another episode of Positive Philter. If you've been following along this summer, you realize that I've been doing a Dean mini-series. And so in this mini-series, I've been having the good fortune of reaching out to all the various deans of the various colleges here at George Mason University to learn about the career journey in academia and just their thoughts on just random topics regarding their leadership and things like that. And it's been a great series. So today I'm joined by Dean Cody Edwards. He is the dean of the College of Sciences. You know, skip that. You're doing it. I don't like that word, interim. He's doing it. And I just want to learn a little bit about his journey, maybe some thoughts on sciences, STEM, whatever. We're going to have a great discussion today. But before we get started, Dean Edwards, can you, give a little overview of who you are? And then we'll go dive in deeper. So you don't have to do the whole bio, but a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Philip, I appreciate you taking the time and providing the opportunity for me to participate. I'm excited about this, and so I think it's meaningful, and hopefully it'll be informative and entertaining at the same time. And you're right. I am the interim dean. I appreciate you saying that, just because some people may think, oh, he thinks he's the dean.
Oh, you are. No, you say you are.
Yeah, I'm certainly doing the job. That's right. Yes. Terrific people around me. Yeah. when I look at where sitting in this office, which is a major goal for me. I've been at Mason for 20 years, most of those as a faculty member. And so when you look at sort of my path to get here, it isn't a straight line. I think that's probably a common theme when people achieve anything. They say, well, it was a complex journey, and it certainly wasn't a linear journey. And I fit into that category, I think, probably with the majority. And so, that's absolutely right. When I got into academia, and I'm happy to talk about that journey as well as we have our discussion today. But when I first entered into academia, it certainly was not with the intention of being an administrator. It really was. Sort of, I think with again a lot of people, I have terrific mentors around me, people that encouraged me, and when opportunities presented themselves, they were there to say, hey, this is a good opportunity, or this is not a good opportunity. Mm-hmm. You definitely should not do this. Not a smart move for you. So I'm happy to talk about all that. But yes, I in addition to being the interim dean, I am also my research is in the field of conservation genomics and evolutionary biology. And so I also have the privilege of being the executive director for the Smithsonian Mason School of Conservation. So a lot of what we do and what the scientists that we work with from the Smithsonian and from Mason and other organizations, we focus on preserving biodiversity, and mostly for us it's vertebrate biodiversity, but we're certainly keen on many aspects of that. So that's sort of what I do in my spare time. Yeah. In my fun time, I still enjoy that a great deal. Not just conducting research, but it's the student interactions that I have to have that. I don't ever want to give that up. So yes, I'm still conducting research, but I'm also still mentoring students, undergraduates, graduate students, postdocs, right? And I'll never give that up. I'm afraid that if I gave that up, I wouldn't be of any use as an administrator. So those interactions with colleagues and students are of paramount importance to me. So again, it's been an interesting journey, and again, happy to talk about the steps along the way.
I love this. So I always ask this, going back to your origin story, like superheroes. You're the dean of science. Do you actually like science? Were you, doing bug collections or stuff like that, and doing experiments when you were a kid? Like, did you always have a love for science?
Yes is the answer. I grew up in a rural part of western Texas. It's a farming and ranching community. People say, what town is it? There was no town. No stoplights, nothing. And it was an economically challenged place, still is. And no one went to college, by and large. I mean, before me, I didn't know a single person that had ever gone to college. Maybe there were. It was very small. I don't know how I would have missed them, right? I mean, there were 20 and 30 people in each class, so you knew what everybody was doing. And what most people were doing was going into the workforce immediately after they graduated. And my brother and I were the first ones in our family on either side that ever went to college. So yes, we lived on a ranch, and we worked on that ranch, and we were around the outdoors all the time. We didn't have, there were no video games, nothing like that. There's 3 channels on TV, and so yes, I fostered a love of the environment. Then I had parents who loved being outdoors, grandparents who loved being outdoors. So there were people around me that shared that passion for the outdoors, and I always enjoyed science when I was in elementary and middle school and high school, and so when I had the opportunity to go to college, I knew that I wanted to be a science major.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely knew that that's where my heart was, and that's where my passion was. What I didn't know was exactly what I wanted to do with that.
Or what science is, because it's crazy. I mean, you could do biology, chemistry, whatever, anything. What was the ones that, especially with nature, did you gravitate to biology because of the, like you say, biodiversity that you're, and I'm not saying you connected it to now, but like chemistry to physics, I mean, science is a lot, right?
Yeah, and I certainly enjoyed, you mentioned chemistry. I was a double major as an undergrad, and chemistry was my other major, biology and chemistry. So that was, I did appreciate and enjoy math, physics, many of the other fields. When I went to college, though, as you can imagine, my parents, who did not, again I mentioned, did not go to college, hardworking, amazing human beings, they're my biggest fans and reason that I've been able to achieve anything that I've been able to achieve. They said, do what you want, but they really wanted me to be a physician.
Yeah, doctor, lawyer, bus, right? That's the money.
Because they didn't, they didn't know college. They didn't go themselves. They knew no one that went to college. And so they were like, well, if you go to college, that's what you want to do. So when I first went to college, I was a pre-med major, and like many biology majors. And then I switched over to pre-dent early on to be a dentist.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, you'll think the end of the story is that he did poorly in college and couldn't get into dental school. That's not what happened, actually. Actually, I did. But along the way, and this is what I love about being open to new perspectives, right? So when I grew up, everybody thought the exact same way, right? Every way that you can think about that. You saw the people that looked like you saw people that sounded like you. And when I went to college, that was the first time that I saw, that's right, my mind was completely blown. I was around people that were not just from all over Texas, but all over the United States and all over the world.
Where'd you go?
I went to a small college called Angelo State University, and it's in San Angelo, Texas. And it had about, 7,000 students, 6,000 students. Now it's 12 or 13,000, much larger. Not large, but larger than it was. And so that really helped me grow as a person. And then I loved it. I wanted to talk with people. I wanted to learn more about them. I started. I developed friendships there that then I was fortunate enough to get involved in research projects. So I met professors. I worked on the research projects, and then as I progressed along, I was invited to travel out of the country. It was mostly for field expeditions, And so I spent months and months in Mexico traveling around, as it turns out, eventually into South America, or Central and South America too. But I was fortunate there. And so along the way, you can imagine, as I start to get exposed to things I didn't even know existed, I started to think, being a dentist is a cool thing. It's a good profession, but it's not the profession for me. And so I would say about my junior year, I started thinking, I was still going through it, but I was starting to think, I don't think this is for me. I think I want to pursue these other interests. And then, of course, I thought to myself, things are going pretty well. It probably would have been easier had I been failing.
Yeah.
Because my parents would have just said, well, you're not doing so well. But then you have to figure out, how am I going to break this to my parents? And how do I explain to them that I want to go to graduate school? Well,
one, you got nice teeth, so I guess that dentist thing is working out. And two, like, I don't know. Shout out to dentists, but I couldn't be looking in people's mouths all day. They're just, I think, doctor, lawyer, bust. My mom's a doctor. I can't stand blood. So, sometimes there's things that happen. So, in that journey, right, and you're starting to, do research and college, were there, like, professors of different identities? Like, wow, like, this person, just to assume the doctor was from another country. Wow, that's crazy. Like, I'm meeting, academics from other places of the world. Was that your experience in college?
It absolutely was. It absolutely was. I frankly, I'm sure there were professors that were from maybe close to that area,
Texas, yeah.
And I'm even expanding out to like a Houston, which is again, if you're in Houston, it's like you've got cultures from all over the world, way represented, right? But yes, most of the professors that I interacted with were either from other states or from other countries.
From other countries,
yes. Which again, for me, it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know, maybe the inverse, but I think about this too, where they say, like, when was the first time you had a academic that looked like you, right? And so maybe inversely, like, that could be said the opposite way, right? Like, when, for someone that is not a person of color, when did they have a professor or something that's a person of color? And so that's exposure, right? Just not only the curriculum, but just seeing academics of diverse identities, it leaves a lasting, impression on people.
You learn the different paths that people have, and their challenges and struggles, and you learn to appreciate that, right? And you learn to respect people.
Yeah.
And not that I didn't respect people.
Not at all.
But it was easy to respect the people that sound like you and look like you, right? It's easy.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I just think that I look back on this, you can tell with such fondness because it was a positive journey for me. It was an amazing experience. I couldn't have even imagined it, frankly, even when I knew I was going to go to college, when I received scholarships, so I'll be able to pay for college.
I literally was about to ask that too. As a first-gen student, were there some financial? I mean, you did speak to like the hidden curriculum. Like, I'm doing this for the first time, so I got to navigate, dorms and all that stuff. My parents came, give me that advice. Were there some other struggles that you had as a first-gen college student that you reflect on, now?
The financial piece was a big one, of course, as it is for many students, right? And so I had to. I applied for financial aid. I received financial aid, a Pell Grant, and a loan. And then my parents, and then I had scholarships, right? I had scholarships that paid for a decent chunk. Again, this was before the days where people were saying you've got a full ride, or
exactly.
at least at this university.
Yeah,
They weren't saying that. Let me say that. I'm
Yeah.
sure there were plenty of universities that were doing that, not this university. And then my parents supplemented the rest, right? Which they had 2 kids going to college, and it was a struggle for them. But they did it, and they never, if they were having challenges, they never told me they were having challenges. If I needed a little extra money, they always provided that little extra money that I needed for books or something like that.
Did they also, because you knew you was coming out of your parents' pocket, were they like, you better not play around with my money and you better finish in 4 years? Did you ever get that pressure?
I
or
never,
not 4 years, but I meant, like,
yeah.
Don't be playing around too long in college.
Right. As it turns out, no. And I think I came, coming from a very small place, and with no one to really talk to about going to college. I mean, my brother, he was gone. And so there was, So when I first went to college, an interesting thing happened as I had all of this freedom, and so the first thing I did was go crazy.
Okay,
right?
there it is.
And I did poorly
Yeah.
my first semester there, and then I realized I've got to get serious about this. I mean, I'm close to failing out, and that realization was probably one of the most crushing times of my life. Thinking that I let my parents down.
That's about to say
Yeah.
that was internal. They didn't have to.
They didn't say a word.
They didn't have to lecture you or anything.
They didn't say a word. When they saw my grades, they didn't say one word to me, Philip.
It's probably worse.
It was worse. But,
Yeah, so please chew me out.
I saw the disappointment.
Yeah.
And I got busy.
You got busy.
Yeah, I got busy.
So fast forward, obviously, when you said the light bulb, when did the light bulb switch of not being a dentist and pursuing graduate school, and what program were you interested in that?
Yeah, it was my senior year in college. Again, at this point in time, I'd been spending a lot of time in the field doing my own research, supporting research. And so during my senior year, I broke the news to my parents that I'm not going to go to dental school. I want to go to graduate school. I had already talked to a couple of professors to sort of see, like, well, what's your interest in taking me on? And so I had a plan, right? I had a plan when I talked with my parents. That it wasn't. I was just like, I'm going to now figure this out.
Yeah.
And they were like they always were. They were supportive. They trusted me, and they said, this seems we know you're doing all these things. We appreciate what you're doing. We know you'll get a degree, and we know you'll be successful. So how can we help? But yeah, that's really. And then I did. Now the thing about it is the courses I was taking were all still relevant courses, right? So I was still taking all of the ologies, we called them, ornithology, mammalogy, right?
Yeah.
All these courses. So there was no. Once I sort of made this pivot, I had taken so many classes that I was perfectly fine to graduate. It didn't hold me up at all.
Gotcha. I thought about this too. Usually when I talk to students and they're always worried about their parents, I said that one advice that I think you did was if you do your own research and present that you were prepared, like that you made a well thought out decision, it lowers the anxieties of the parents and they'll buy in. Most times when parents say, I'm worried about this, whatever, it's because when some student says, oh, I don't know, I'll figure it out, that scares them. It scares anybody, right? But if you go to your mom and dad and say, hey, I'm not going to dental school, I'm going to grad schools, here's the 3 ones I looked at, here's possible careers that you can do with it, just to give them some, I can get a job out of this, and then you kind of present that to your parents. I think that helps. Is that the case for you?
You're spot on. I mean, I think that's a great approach. And that was the approach that I took. That I clearly laid this out, and most importantly, you mentioned this, and I think this is the highlight for many parents, and that is at the end of the day, I'm able to do this for the rest of my life.
That's what they want to know. That's saying Dr. Lawyer Bus. You're like, don't worry, mom and dad, I will not be moving back home. I will have a job to provide for myself, that's the end of the day.
Yeah, we couldn't even afford a basement, so there was no basement to live in either, right?
He was in the main room.
It was a 2-bedroom house. It was a small, tiny house. There was no moving back home. There was not going to happen.
I'll tell you, I had that motivator. I did move back home, and that also. I got a college degree. I moved back home after college. I told myself, I was like, I got to get out of here in 6 months. That was a motivator. So I think about that too. It's like, it gave me spark to I need to get it together. That's when I went to grad school. So was the grad school the same undergrad? You just stayed there with the professor?
It was. Now I had more options though.
Okay.
Because as part of this community, I had also been going to scientific meetings.
Yeah, okay.
And the professors that I was working with would introduce me to other professors. Right. That's exactly right. I started building a network. I was giving presentations, and so then people would see what you're capable of, right? And then they would talk. So when that came time to, I knew though I couldn't jump right into a PhD program. I definitely was not prepared for that, like many people are.
Okay.
So I knew I needed to go into a master's program to be successful, and so I narrowed it down to 3 or 4 master's programs. I had connections with faculty there that had agreed to serve as mentors. Applied, got accepted to those programs, and then it came down to, at this point in time, I want a little. I don't want to put all the financial burden on my parents and myself. So now I'm in a position where I can look for. Are you going to be able to give me a scholarship or a graduate teaching assistantship? Right.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I did choose to stay at Angelo State. It was a couple of factors. One financially, it was a very inexpensive place to live. Right?
Yeah, where is this place?
It's in San Angelo, Texas. It's in sort of South Central Texas.
Okay, because I'm looking in my head when you said South, like West Texas. I was thinking like the only thing that came to my mind was like El Paso.
Yeah, that's far west.
That's far west.
And I'm going to apologize to any of your listeners that are from El Paso. If you go to El Paso and start saying you're from West Texas, they laugh in your face saying you're not from West Texas. You might as well be from East Texas if you're not from El Paso. So
okay, there it is.
So my apologies to them.
Yeah, it's like that's the only I'm like picturing the whole thing in my head. Okay.
Yeah.
So how far from you? Like were you like Austin or Dallas? How far were you from there?
It's a good reference point. So if you drew a straight line from Dallas to El Paso, it basically right in between I'm from roughly that area.
Gotcha.
Right? So just most people would say I've been to Texas and they say the same thing, right? I've been to Dallas or Austin, San Antonio or Houston. This is not an area of Texas that a lot of you may travel through there on an interstate, but you probably haven't visited. But the cost of living was low, and the other places it was much higher. Well, higher or much higher. And so I thought this is probably a better financial situation. And then the person that became my first true mentor, who is like a second father to me now, I had been working with him. He was there. He was encouraging me, you should go other places. But then I realized this is who I want to work for.
Right.
And so he agreed. He had already agreed to serve as a mentor. And so I did. So I ended up staying there for a master's too, which was, you look back on your life and you say, I came to this crossroads. Did I choose the right path? Home run.
That's it. Okay. Yep. That's it. You swung for the fences. Hit.
I did.
All right. So when in your journey, well, after you got your master's, what was your first, did you automatically go right into the PhD program, or did you get like a job in research and then come back to PhD?
I jumped right into a PhD program. So I had an amazing experience as a master's student, including I started. I've spent a big chunk of my career working in the Galapagos Islands, and that was the first time that I got to go on a research trip to the Galapagos Islands.
Is that where the Komodo dragons at?
Komodo dragons? No, not the Komodo dragons. They're actually in. You have to go to the other end of the planet to get to.
I thought it was Galapagos Islands.
Some
islands.
That's where like the Galapagos, the finches, Darwin's finches are.
Okay.
And the Galapagos tortoises. Yeah,
I feel like the word Galapagos Island was something of science and significance.
It's off the coast of South America, 400 miles. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're doing that. You're like, wow. Okay. You enjoyed it, and I think that speaks to it too, right? Like a lot of people will say, continue through. Like if you are still in that learning mode, just keep on going from your master's to your PhD. I'll tell you right now, highly not recommend trying to go do a PhD with 2 kids and a wife. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not fun kids. So you were in that program. You're like, I'm gonna keep going. Did you do your PhD at the same place, or this time was like, yo, I need to go do a PhD somewhere else?
Yes, they did not have. Angelo State did not have. I think they only have one PhD program now, and I think it's in nursing. Yeah. So there was no option there. I didn't need to stay there any longer anyway.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So then I had same story, right? I was getting exposed to even more and more and more people. And then I started looking at PhD programs all around the country at this point in time. I didn't limit myself to. Not a couple of my master's programs I was considering were not in Texas, but they were one was in New Mexico, one was in Oklahoma, at the University of Oklahoma. But I started looking now. I had expanded nationally, and so I started looking at PhD programs all over and trying to narrow that down. Yeah.
Where'd you end up?
I ended up at Texas Tech.
All right, so, you're not
right.
leaving Texas,
Yeah,
man. Why you're not leaving? Texas is so big. You're like, I can stay in Texas and feel like I'm in a whole new state.
Yeah, it's interesting too. You'll see a common theme up until 20 years ago.
You love Texas.
It's like my family has been in Texas for over 130 years. And so going back to the 1880s, they lived in the same little town. So they were one of the first 2 or 3 families that moved, right? And so even today, my brother, no one lives more than 10 miles away. So it's very unusual for anybody.
You're gone,
and actually, my wife, who I didn't know until graduate school, I didn't meet till graduate school. Her family's the same way. So we're like oddballs. Right?
Y'all the Texas expats. Whatever.
That's right.
One of the thoughts. I mean, this is history wise. When your family moved, do you do genealogy? Like where they come right before they got to Texas?
They came from Virginia.
Okay, there it is.
Yeah,
all right,
they came from Culpeper, Virginia.
Okay, country to country. Wow. So wow, like you stayed in Texas, you're doing that. What was your first living situation outside the state of Texas?
Yeah, so I finished a PhD quickly.
Yeah,
right?
Get it out, knock it out.
I mean, I hit the ground running. I knew my project. I was fully funded at that point in time, and so then it became I stayed to do a postdoc there, but in a completely different area, which was amazing.
I think that gives you exposure to it.
It was incredible. The person I worked for, he was his dad had been his dad was the president. Then it was, I guess, the CEO of Amoco Oil. And
Texas Oil.
Right, well, he wasn't from Texas. He was from the Northeast. And that was another amazing thing, another mentor for me, because he opened up a world I'd never seen. I didn't know that you could order cheese, online, and he would order this French cheese and have these parties at his house. I
mean, he's an oil man.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah,
right?
That's awesome.
And he was this guy's name is Larry Blanton. He was the epitome of an academic, though. Like when you go to Oxford, right? And you expect to see
cases and books, books in a library, extensive library in their house.
He was like that.
A study or something like that.
It's phenomenal. Again, one of these
crazy.
people that's so giving and with his time and advice, and still today, if I reached out to him, he would help me in any way that I needed. So.
I'm picturing books and listening to classical music all the time, and I don't know, mystery. What's it? The theater. What's it called? Man, it's gonna come to me later. But very you said, academic and
He attended the opera. Right?
Yeah, of course. Man of class and distinction.
I didn't know that there was that you could go to New York and see Broadway shows, and he said, "Yeah, I go do that all the time with." Right, I mean, it was that kind of thing.
Probably had a pipe. I'm thinking a cigar and a smoker jacket, just fancy.
Yeah. The things that he had in his house. It were incredible. I mean, it was like a museum. It was like a museum. It was incredible. But working with him, he was a phenomenal scientist too. Still is a phenomenal scientist. And so it opened up this new skill set to me that I didn't. I mean, I had a great skill set. It opened up an even broader skill set. So again, here we are, people, opportunities, people giving their time, wanting to be a good mentor, and he was certainly another person like that. Yep. And so to get back to your question that you originally asked, when did I leave Texas?
Yeah.
So I stayed for a postdoc, right, at Texas Tech, and then I got a job. Actually, I was applying for jobs at that point in time. We're talking about 2000, 2001.
Okay.
2000, and so the job market was awful, and so.
Was that like a recession? I know I graduated in 2008. That was a recession. Was that was that kind of like that?
There hadn't really been a massive turnover in higher ed.
Got it.
Right. So a lot of people who'd gotten jobs in the 60s, when higher ed really exploded, right?
Yes.
Those people still had those jobs, and they weren't giving them up.
That's it. Okay. It was a new wave.
Right.
Gotcha.
And so I applied for jobs, the jobs that were open, right? That I was qualified for. I think there were 4 or 5 of these, and one of them. There was one at the University of Alaska, Fairbanks, and there was another one in East Texas at a place called Stephen F. Austin State University, which is north of Houston, about 2 hours in Piney Woods. Beautiful place. It's an older university. And so I ended up getting interviews for both places. I interviewed at Stephen F. Austin first, though, and they found out. They asked me, "Are you applying at other places?" And I'm not only am I applying, I'm leaving here, and I'm flying immediately to Fairbanks, Alaska, to interview. And so they offered me the job there. And so, and it was one of these things: if you leave here, the job's not yours, and so you've got to commit. And so, I think they gave me a few hours, and so I did. I committed there. And so that was the first place I was a professor. Still in Texas, though.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, man.
I love this. I feel like I need to have a map of Texas and just say, I say, Cody Edwards, the man of Texas.
Yeah, if you've ever lived in East Texas, though, the people in East Texas don't view themselves like they do, like many other Texans do. So then again, I'm sorry for
I love this story. No, I love this journey.
So a couple of years, or about a year into that job. Which was an odd situation. My wife was finishing up physical therapy school. She was actually living still in Lubbock for part of that, and then she moved she was doing these rotations, and so we were living apart. And so I had a friend that worked at the Smithsonian that I had met early on. All right, so here we go.
Here we go.
And he told me, hey, there's this job at this university called George Mason University.
That's it. All right.
And this job is there's this really famous turtle biologist that's there, and he's retiring.
Okay. And that's the old guard you were talking about, right?
That's exactly right.
The old guard was coming out.
That's exactly right. And he said, you missed the deadline.
Yeah.
You missed the deadline, but I reached out to them, and they said that they're still taking applications. So if you're interested, so I did.
People, connection, networking.
That's right.
Wow. Turtle biologist too.
Yeah, this guy he was really famous. As a matter of fact, he was still here when I interviewed, and they said, "Oh, if he doesn't like you, you're sunk right off the bat."
Because he was a pillar of the university.
He was actually. This was in the days before. Mason couldn't even imagine being an R1 at that. This was still a teaching university. I mean,
That's
it still
it.
was. It was pivoting, no question about that. But people still viewed this university as a commuter university.
Yes, it was.
Right, and people taught, then did research.
Okay, what year was that?
This was I came here in 2004.
Okay, I graduated 03 of high school, and I say that to say, like, I remember going here, like visiting, and it was like, this is the school that you went to. If you didn't, get your act together, you go to Nova and come here first. Mind you, like, to everyone right now, that was a 2003 stereotype. That's not the current space now. To show the transformation that this is a school, people's first choice now. That economically, people do go to community college first to save money, right? This is the preconceived stereotypes or stigmas that we had about 20 years ago, right? So that's a different time. So I want to pivot, and then I want to come back to your journey. You said something about he was a phenomenal scientist, and then you said he had skills. Just for the listeners, particularly young people, what skills make someone a phenomenal scientist? And grow, I like the broadness of, like, is it curiosity? Is it the ability to communicate? What things when you think of a good scientist, what would you say?
You're on the right track. I think the first thing that people might think I'm going to say is you have to be very smart, and I'm not even going to say that.
Okay.
Because you've hit on some of the more important, in my opinion, characteristics, and that is you do have to be curious. I think that's with a lot of fields. You need to be intellectually curious. You need to be open to new ideas, new thoughts, new opinions. I think you have to be driven. There's no doubt about that. Again, that's not unique to science, but I think you need to be driven. And then the communication is another key to just about any discipline I've seen, including in administration. Right, is you need to know how to communicate with people. How they communicate. You need to not only say, listen, this is how I communicate. You're going to communicate with me this way, Phil. Right? No. I need to know how you communicate, right? Because I need to meet you where you are, and so I think those are all important pieces to that. I also think that for me, that mentorship piece along the way was cool. I made really good grades in school and everything. I was ranked in. I got scholarships, all those things.
Yeah.
But without the mentors, I wouldn't be here today.
So relationships, relationships,
100%.
Collaboration. Because, like, if you're a scientist, you're mostly working on teams with other people, and interdisciplinary teams. I'm thinking like there's a total pivot, but I'm thinking like the Manhattan Project, Oppenheimer, right? Like he was super smart, but had to somewhat be socially aware, like to have people, even though they said he was very quirky. But point is, he knew he couldn't do XYZ as a scientist alone, right?
You can go it alone, right? But to achieve anything on a grand scale, you're going to have to know how to work in groups, right? To solve grand challenges and things like that, you must know how to work in interdisciplinary groups. Right?
Research, particularly research, right?
That's exactly right. And it's the same thing being in these leadership positions. That I rely on the relationships that I've established in these 20 years and partnerships every day. And to be successful and to move this college forward.
I love it. So, you've had quite a journey. One of my questions is, was that exciting to come to a university where the old guard was graduating? Did you see like, wow, even though it's in Virginia, maybe it has a lot of opportunities because it's going to scale up, it's going to grow eventually, or like, did you see that potential when you took the chance in Virginia?
No doubt. And the people, the staff and students and professors that were here before that will tell you, they would say, you need to say that when you came here, you could see that this university was pivoting, had already started pivoting, and they were already on an upward trajectory, no doubt. And even my colleagues at the Smithsonian said that, is this university, there's something interesting going on there, and they were spot on. And when I came here, that was it was basically a blank slate.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, you could have an impact. I'm not saying if you go to other universities you couldn't, but if you go to Harvard is Harvard, whether you're there or not.
It already had establishment.
That's right.
And
But this university, and I think that's still the case today.
Yeah.
But then it was especially like that. If you wanted to make an impact, you could make an impact, and that was terribly exciting to me.
Or like sink or swim, like you'll get thrown like for you I'm assuming, and you can correct me, is that it does infuse leadership because there's a blank slate. So you might be doing at this university, a smaller school, you might have to learn how to do like finance. Like you're going to lead a project, but not only do that, you got to learn how to do it with no money. Like figure this out. Like kind of like it's like put the plane on because it was young and new.
Phil, that's still the way it is today.
I know.
Right?
I can see that from my experience.
I brought Harvard up, and I guarantee your listeners are going to laugh saying, this place doesn't have Harvard resources. And you're like, no
we ain't got Harvard money.
It doesn't. And that's what makes this place even more special, right? Is think about where we've come, where we're going, and without, billion-dollar endowments.
Yeah.
It's really insane.
It's to scale. I think that's, I'm a proud Mason alum, so I do have that kind of like state of Virginia chip on my shoulder. At the same time, I think that's one of the things I do like about it is that we're resourceful and get things done. But at the same time, I'm like, dang, wouldn't it be nice to have that Harvard money? Like, it'd be nice to have those resources. So it's the flexibility of it, right? Like, you can't have everything, grass is greener. So as you were coming up, you came here for teaching, you came here for faculty. When did it start to pivot to like maybe department chair or leadership in the academic realm?
Yeah, that started to happen after I'd been here for close to a decade.
Okay, right? 10 years in, you're just doing your thing.
Right, so I went through I was an assistant professor without tenure, and then eventually, got promoted to an associate professor with tenure. And right about that time, there was a professor here in the College of Science named Rick Dicio, and he was a geologist, and then he was an associate dean in the college at that time.
Okay.
And there was another person that was sort of coming into a similar role. It was a chemist named Tim Bourne. And I liked both of them a great deal. And I went to them and asked them lots of questions. They were on, especially Tim. He was just a few years older than me, but he was a phenomenal chemistry professor. Students loved him. Mm-hmm. And he was making his way into administration, so I wanted to know about it. I wasn't really thinking that was the path, but I spent time talking with them. Again, here we go, people willing to give their time, right? Yeah. And there were a couple of things that came up that I bounced off of Rick Dicio, saying, "What do you think about this?" And you know how sometimes people say they feel like they should say, "Oh, you should try that," right? They're trying to be encouraged. They want to be encouraging, right? he was encouraging, but he said that would be a disaster. Like, this is a dead end, and you're going to be ruined in this, because this is an opportunity that's not thought out, and the people doing this haven't thought about it, and it's going to fail, and the person in this is going to fail, and they're going to be failures, and that'll be the end of them, and administrators. And I'd never heard anybody talk to me like that before, like lay something out, like, because he was politically savvy. Right.
Also, he knew that, like, once again, communication, and also learning the intersections of state and policy and government, that I'd say the president at Mason has to wear 3 hats. He has to, like, be a money person, business person, but then he's got to be a politician down in Richmond. And then he's also got to be academic, the 3 hats: businessman, academic, and politician. And for certain roles. That's not everywhere, but you have to think about, how does external policies, like you said, influence it? Like, you can have this policy and it's dead on arrival.
Well, and to expand a little bit on that, if you look at Greg Washington, right, an incredibly accomplished human being, and like, as an academic, as an administrator, right, I can guarantee you that Greg Washington does not make moves. He does not make professional moves, right? From being a faculty without he's calculated.
Chess, not checkers.
That is exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's what Rick was teaching me.
Yes.
Is don't just because this is a leadership opportunity, don't jump at every leadership opportunity.
That's
you
it.
must think about these
Chess,
things.
not check. Make your moves.
That's
very,
right. And
yeah.
you need to learn how to ask the right questions. And you don't know how to ask the right questions. And you need to get savvy about that before you think about doing this. That's what he was telling me. He was telling me, I'm telling you, this position is going to be in this position for about 6 months, and they're going to can it. And that's exactly what happened, by the way.
Yeah. Or, like, I thought about it too, right? Like, it's like, man, this is one thought about getting blessings later, right? I've learned later, like, especially like titles, right? You're like, dang, I want this leadership role, like president of a chapter. I'm just thinking of like, and then you look at the person that actually gets it, and it's like, it's an S, right? It's they were set up to failure, right?
Yes, it's a shame.
And then you're like, oh, thank God I dodged that bullet. Understanding it was chess, not checkers. Like, was the infrastructure in place, or when I come into this place, am I going to be the fall guy, right? Like, that chess part. Like, is there things where similar? I tell students a lot too. Is like, when you think of a job as a great opportunity, ask those questions. Like, even if this sounds great as a great opportunity, am I going to be like, get in this position and then I be the fall person? So ask, what accommodations do I have? What systems are in place to help me succeed? What training do I get? How many days do you expect me to do well, so that you don't get there and everyone's like, oh, you're terrible, because they expect you to turn this all around in 1 week. So these are chess moves. I love it.
In any field.
Yeah,
right?
any field.
In any field. The excitement is great.
Yes.
But you do need to take a step back and think, is this a smart move for me and my family?
Yeah,
right?
Who am I reporting to?
And again, to my good fortune, this wasn't me bragging, saying, oh, I figured this out, Philip. No. I would have made the mistake.
I love that story where that man said, like, cool your horses. Did you ever, like, in retrospect, when it did go down, like, did you ever, like, reach out to him and say, thank God you helped me dodge a bullet?
Multiple times. Multiple times, Philip. I loved him. Yes. Not just once, but he always knew that I appreciate him. And that wasn't the only time I ever went back to him, because another opportunity presented itself. The Mason got a pot of money, a few $1 million from the Commonwealth of Virginia to start some STEM programming, and so the College of Science got received a few $1 million, and they wanted to start a program. They didn't know what they wanted to do, but they knew they wanted to have some kind of program focused on STEM, focused on student success, and so he said, "This is your chance."
Was it the opposite?
That's right.
He said, I see systems in place to be successful. They actually have a structure. They have goals set. If you can put yourself in right here, there's a good chess move.
He did, and what he told me too was, he said, and this was the first time I'd faced this too, right? He said, it's a risk, because if you can't pull this off, you're going to be the one that wasted millions of dollars. And for this administration, the deans that were in place at that time,
Can't afford to lose that money.
This is it for you. They're going to know that this is not a person that we can trust, right? So I said it's a risk, but it's a good risk. And if you pull this off, good things are going to happen.
So you have to make one. What I'm hearing from the stories too is that most people of leadership have like an advisory board to shoot ideas off of ahead of time. Two, I'm thinking this is a lesson I'm learning from this conversation is while it looks very good, title, prestige, whatever, salary, think about the chess move though. It's like at what cost, what risk? Do I need it right now? Because it might not be the best choice. So just kind of slow down. You know, I'm talking to myself. I get really excited. Like, this is the best. I need to slow down and really think. I don't want to be paralysis by analysis. I'm still going to make moves, but I need to make slower down moves.
Right. And we're all going to fail.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
That you can't be afraid to fail.
Got it.
Right. There's no question about that. I hope no one gets that out of the story. Is that he's never failed? That's not true. I failed many, many, many times. Yeah. It happens. But I'm saying that it's the catastrophic failures that you want to avoid.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, fail forward. And then there's ones like, that's not a fail forward. That's like going to knock you on your ass kind of one.
And take responsibility with you.
Yeah.
Right? That's another thing is I sit there and I self-reflect. I do this on a daily basis, by the way. And I think to myself, what did I not do so great today? And how would I correct that, right? How am I going to correct that? And that's been beneficial to me too. But that central theme has been others. Right, mentors, people willing to give their time to me. That if I just and again, I sound like a broken record.
Not at all. I was about to say, we coded this interview. Mentorship is going to be a key theme in my coded interview of this, and that is it's a central part of your complex journey. It was people, mentors, people that people as a great resource for science, STEM, and it's almost like you said you could do science alone, but it's probably not the best strategy.
No.
I love it. So I think we could talk forever, but I know I want to respect your time. This is the part of the show called Shot for Shot.
Okay.
I get to ask you any random question. You get to ask me any random question. You want to go first, or I'll go first?
Go ahead.
So I've heard that football is religion in Texas. Even in your small town, was that the case? If not, when you got to other schools, did more exposure? Are you a big football fan?
I am a huge football fan. There's no doubt about that. Interesting, though, where I went to school, there was no football.
Yeah.
It's only basketball and track and things like that. So I never played football. I played like Pop Warner, whatever. But I mean, when I was a little kid. But yes, am I a giant football fan? Yes, I'm a huge sports fan.
Okay, take it.
Really big sports fan. Yes.
So quick pivot then. Who's your top three teams? You can say football, baseball, all that. Just three teams that you rock with.
Sure. Well, of course, I'm from Texas, so in football, I hate to say this around here because I know people don't like it, but the Dallas Cowboys are my football team, right?
I give you that.
And then in baseball, my grandfather. Shockingly, my grandfather was in the military, so he traveled around. So it's not that shocking.
He got out of Texas.
He did get out. Right? he got a free ride to Europe in World War II. So
can I just tell a quick story?
Sure. Please.
So one quick story is that my uncle, he was sold to be in the Air Force by a recruiter, and they said, "You'll see the world. You go to Japan." Guess where he ended up most of his time?
Where's that?
Texas.
Yeah.
San Antonio. He's like, I never left the state of Texas. I didn't see the world. I saw Texas.
Yeah. San Antonio's a nice place,
but that's
still,
it. That's all he saw.
World.
That's all he saw. But go ahead.
Yeah. No. So my grandfather was a huge baseball fan, and he was a New York Yankees fan.
Oh, that's fun.
So I became a Yankees fan. Now, again, you talk about. Now I've got two of the three, but some of the most hated franchises in right.
Okay.
And then. Of course, I'm a George Mason University fan.
That's fact.
Right? So I'm not going to leave George Mason out. In any sport, I'll go and watch George Mason. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
But I'm also, my wife and I, because we both went to Texas Tech, we follow Texas Tech sports.
Oh, snap, man. You must have loved Mahomes time.
Patrick Mahomes, oh my gosh.
My son already loves you.
That's
his favorite player of all time.
We have, so what we do is, and my daughter loves Pat Mahomes too, right? What we do is we rock the Texas Tech Pat Mahomes jerseys, right? So then you really look like a fan, right? I mean, instead of the Chiefs, you're rocking that too. So yeah, no, Patrick Mahomes is You still see him, right? And by the way, the Washington Commanders, a former Texas Tech head coach, Cliff Kingsbury, is
That's
here
it.
now.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've seen Cliff many times. He was Lubbock's not a big place. We'd run into him all the time there.
crazy.
So I'm looking forward to running into Cliff Kingsbury around here.
Fun fact is the largest scoring college football game was Texas Tech versus Oklahoma, where I think Baker Mayfield had 7 touchdowns and Patrick Mahomes 6.
I saw that game. It was amazing. Yeah, it was it's one of those where you thought there's no defense on the field.
Not at all.
It's crazy.
Fun fact is my son learns that he loves football. So, all right, what's your question for me?
I want to know what you hope that your kids, like I know you're going to say, you're going to be like every parent, myself included, I want what's best for my kids, right? Of course we do. Yeah. What do you hope, where do you hope to see your kids go from here, right? Where do they end up?
So here's my vision of my 2 sons. I got 2 boys.
All right.
Bennett, he's 9. Miles is 6. I don't know what, but they're just physically gifted. Bennett is tall and lengthy, and my son Miles is literally a ball of muscle, just a tank. So some of my aspirations is that they do use their physical gifts in a sport, but then at the same time, also they're different, not smart. They have different things. So Miles, I see as the most social butterfly, life at a party, probably he says hi to everybody. And so I can envision him having a very deep social circle, right? My son Bennett is brilliant. Like, he's in advanced placement. He loves football. So I was like, maybe football IQ, but he loves to learn. He's smart. He's already read I don't know. This dude is so smart. He's like an encyclopedia. He's the one that told me about fun fact. Did you know where'd you read that? I read it once 6 months ago. He picks up things and remembers.
I love it.
So my vision regardless is that they can live wherever. They still going to be taking care of me or their mama. Mm-hmm. That's it. We live, Bennett will be that Renaissance man, athletic, gifted, scholar. Miles is going to be just socially connected, have a good friend group, and just be happy. So you notice I never say career because I don't care what they do. I just want them to be happy and physically healthy and just using their natural gifts that they got. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
I knew I could tell your eyes lit up. I love to see that. So I
ain't gonna lie, I'm lighting up now. They get on my nerves, but I love them. Shout out to my kids. But that's the thing too, is that quick pivot. We live with my mother-in-law. My father-in-law passed away, and we lived together, intergenerational. And I was like, they're seeing it. They're seeing this model that one of y'all, hopefully you have a partner, man, woman, I don't care. Your partner understands that the agreement is someone's taking care of me or my wife. We're living with y'all. So either way, I don't care what you do, doctor, lawyer, bust, any career, have a room for me.
Yep.
I'm there. Or your mama. Have a room for one of us. So you take care of us because I think that's what certain families do well. So I'll add that to the vision. I was like, my dad lives up here in the attic. They give me food and let me play video games.
Well, I think probably the main theme in all this, and what you just said too, it is the family piece to this, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I mentioned my parents from the beginning. They're the other people, up until I met my wife. I mean, they were the foundation. Always have been. Always still are. Right. Still my biggest cheerleaders. But yeah. So I get it. That family piece is
take care of me.
Can't be discounted.
Yeah, especially in this economy.
I
need to live with them.
Yeah. Right.
So this is this has been a great show. Now the opportunity is called shout outs and plugs. These are things that you want to share. Shout outs, show love to anyone, your parents, mentors, whatever. And then plugs. These are things. Resources, things that I'll write down to make sure I put in the show notes, whether it's what the College of Science doing or Smithsonian. So shout outs and plugs.
Well, I've talked about all my mentors today, and so I certainly I'll mention a few of them. Bob Dowler was the person who I worked under as an undergraduate and as a master's student, and then another mentor. I would say my second largest mentor was Robert Bradley, who was my major professor at Texas Tech. I mentioned Larry Blanton, who again was sort of this the Renaissance human being that opened up the world. And then I mentioned Tim Bourne and Rick Dicio. The other major, I would say, mentor for me, and this was at Mason, and still today, a human that really has helped me so much, and I model much of what I try to anyway. It's difficult to achieve. Is Michelle Marks, and Michelle Marks worked her way up through the administration here. She's phenomenal human being, great friend, but also someone again that I looked up to, and I asked her a lot. I probably bugged her.
Hold on, isn't Michelle now at Denver?
Yeah, she's at the University of Colorado.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to remember that name. Yeah,
exactly right. Yeah, no, she's a rock star. She always has been.
And then plugs.
I also want to the last shout out is to just the all of my colleagues in the College of Science. Mm-hmm. I mean that isn't again, I wouldn't have achieved anything here were it not for the faculty, staff, and students, and that continues to be the case today. That the successes that this college has and will continue to have largely have nothing to do with me. It's all of these other people that make this place so special, and it's that way at Mason too. So a huge shout out to all of my colleagues in the College of Science. Plugs, I definitely want to plug my dean's blog, right? And I have a few people from our marketing and communications team that they're phenomenal people, phenomenal professionals that they basically help and direct that blog and make that blog happen is what they do. And then I also want to plug some of the, I would like for people to take a look at the College of Science website and the College of Science, all of the social media, to look at all of the really cool things that our scientists are doing. And that's not just in labs either. That's in the classroom. We have incredibly talented teachers, and so I want to plug the professors in this college. And so if there are students out there, if there are listeners that are interested, and you say, well, how do I get connected with these amazing people as mentors? First and foremost, you can reach out to me. I mean, I'm always happy to play it back, right? And I do that, and I will always do that. But we have some really, really amazing people in this college. So, yeah, I send a big plug out to them. I want to plug the work that they're doing.
Excellent. I'll make sure to connect and I don't get all the social media links, but if there's a subscription list to the blog, a subscription link to the blog, I'll make sure to include that in the show notes because I think that's a great idea. Newsletters, seeing content come in helps you absorb what's going on. Positive Philter listeners, this has been a great episode. As you know, every episode is dedicated to the memory of my father-in-law, Jeff Kirsch. So please consider donating to the Jeff Kirsch Anti-Hunger Fund for all his work fighting food insecurity during his career. Secondly, if you're a member of the Mason Nation, please consider giving a Pats for Patriots to elevate the kindness of someone else on campus. Please, a kind community helps us all thrive. So thank you so much for listening. Please like, subscribe, write a review, anything to elevate this podcast, and have a great day. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.